So this is our first official guest-facing episode in the Word of Mouth podcast presented by Johnny Davis Digital Solutions. And we're going to use this podcast as sort of a way to not just get what we do out into the community, but those, the creatives in our community, the movers and the shakers, the people that are redefining our industry and our community within that. So today we're going to be joined by Jane Dagmi, the managing director of High Point by Design. Jane, we have worked together for several years now, but I guess to start off, if you could explain what you do in your role at High Point by Design and what that organization does.
Sure. So I'm wearing the T-shirt, HPXD, otherwise called High Point by Design, and we promote the design scene in High Point that's happening all the time. So we are 24/7. High Point's amazing. We have an incredible design scene. And I take all that richness in our community and just, promote it through social media, create events around it, and try to get people to notice High Point, that they can come here all year round and have an incredible experience that is centered around design.
That's amazing. So when you're referring to design, most people associate the two words High Point and design with furniture. So are we talking just furniture design, or are we talking design as a concept?
Design more as a concept. And what I'd say that when we, in the work that I do, we have several audiences that we bring design to. So one of our major audiences are interior designers, or is interior designers. So we speak to them in interior design. We want to educate them about furniture design and things like that. So, design is much more beyond furniture. And then we speak to students, which that's when we sort of first worked together,
right.
When we brought the SCAD students here in 2022.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because we look at High Point as the most incredible laboratory for all aspects of the home furnishings industry. So whether you want to pursue furniture design, interior design, marketing, merchandising, logistics, everything is here. High Point has this incredible infrastructure from all these different facets of the industry. So we want to entice them to enter the industry and look at it, through different categories. And then our community, it's very important to me to bring the messages of design to the community to make a difference, because design is everywhere. The design of our streets, the design of our cities, of our schools. How can we help the community have a better designed experience that will improve their lives?
And what inspires you to take on a task like this, to work outside of something as traditional as like a chamber of commerce, and instead to work from sort of the living soul of the city, and then kind of bring that, like that's a huge undertaking.
I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. To me, it's just natural. It's like this organization existed. I think if I talk about a little bit about how it started, then, so we started in 2020.
Okay.
When the pandemic was raging.
Right.
So a couple of friends, and there's this community here that lives all year round, that's creative, that owns furniture showrooms, and we were sitting having beers, and we just got the message on our phones that High Point Market had just postponed market, right, because of COVID. And so many of the showroom owners got together, and we were like, well, what are we going to do? We have employees to take care of,
right,
our own families. And then, of course, designers were the busiest. They were the rock stars of COVID, right? So we decided we would let's open our showroom. So it started there, just like a necessity.
Yeah.
Right? And then at the time, I was an editor at a magazine, and I was privy to these early conversations because I'm local, because I knew everybody that owned that had different showrooms,
right,
and they cared about my point of view. And my boyfriend was managing a showroom, and I just thought, this is amazing. Like, I love that High Point's going to be open throughout the year, that people will come to it. When I was an editor, we did this event called the Designer Experience, and I was the editor of Designers Today magazine. This was before COVID, and we brought 60 designers. Most of them had been to High Point Market. We brought them to High Point outside of Market, like in August and in May.
Yeah.
And we created a tour all based around design, going to factories, having some business education, doing beautiful dinners, 2.5 days worth of touring and education. And the designers loved it. So I
Right.
knew, like, you can come back to High Point anytime and
Yeah.
have a great experience. So anyway, I'm an editor. This is happening. It's COVID. And then after a while, when I heard that High Point by Design was looking for a director,
Right.
it was like, I have to do
It
it.
was a logical fit. Well, it's interesting that the pandemic marked the shutdown of so many community functions and so many industries during that time, that y'all were able to sit down and figure out how to in the middle of all of the closing to actually bring something into the community that had never really happened before. Even prior to the pandemic, people still weren't walking into showrooms.
Right. I
Year
mean,
round.
there have been efforts. There have been
Right.
lots of efforts. There was the Showroom Association, or the High Point Showroom Association. I think that's what it was called. Actually, we merged with them
Okay.
in 21.
Okay.
The High Point Showroom Association, that's what it was called. We merged with them in 21. I was not part of High Point by Design at that time. I came on in March of 2022
Right.
is when I started. And now we're, what is it? Well, 2.5 years into it.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Coming right up on 3.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered a question.
No,
or if
yeah,
I'm just-
absolutely. You answered it for sure. Which also, I was going to mention when we're talking about, kind of bringing the furniture retailers to more people and the interior designers. Are you starting to see through your efforts with HPXD more of a interior design community being built in High Point, as opposed to just being the furniture capital of the world, that interior designers are starting to consider this almost like their professional home as well?
Oh, that's a nice thought. I mean, I love that idea that they feel, I would say right now, it's not like an onslaught, I mean, we know that we have ambassadors that really feel strongly about High Point.
Right.
They love High Point. They love coming to market. They love coming outside of market. They just love it here. They feel, it's like, there's a feeling that's here and you can really feel the city when it's not
Absolutely.
jam-packed with 50, 60,000 people.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
it's really appealing. It's like the equivalent of, slow food and slow cooking. It's just, you have time to feel the energy of the city.
You feel it breathe, when you come in, after a snowstorm, I noticed it, or after market, when everything clears out, you kind of feel the city kind of take a breath. And then you kind of feel it come back to sort of that relaxed breathing pattern before it starts to get erratic in the spring. And then the closer to market,
right,
we're all holding our breath.
We know all of our,
Yes.
how the curve goes. But even when I didn't live here and I would come to market, I would always stay through Wednesday. I would stay through the end.
Yeah.
And I had a ritual where I would go to Red Egg, Carol Gregg's place, and Carol's now the president of our board. I would go to Red Egg and have my last hour of market, or even go after market was closed officially, and just
Right.
have a glass of Prosecco or something with her, wine on the porch. And that was I just loved that calm after
Yeah.
the storm.
Yeah.
And I used to sit on her swing and say, I want to do a magazine about High Point, just this, just life of creatives in High Point. Which,
I like that. I like that. And I think that's, honestly, I think that's kind of what HPXD is. It is a living magazine, that features, the small moments in between markets, and, when the streets aren't jam packed, but how that calm kind of lends itself to the electricity that we do feel that couple times a year. I'm addicted to market, and I am very much of the mindset that that electricity that we feel building, I think it's palpable.
Well, you're getting as you know what your ebb and flow is here at the
Right.
studio, right? So, and as people are bringing in their new product, you're getting busier and juggling all your
Yes.
clients to shoot what they're bringing in, all their introductions. And I know sometimes I'm like, can I do it again? Seriously, It is a marathon,
Yep.
and then I do it and then it's over.
It's a marathon, yeah, and then a wind sprint, right there at the end. and our agency or our studio is so tied into different aspects of the market that our buildup starts several months prior to market, and then you have that crescendo during market where we might be shooting in showrooms at 2 o'clock in the morning because they need that done
Right.
then, and we've got to put it back like we were never there.
Oh,
So by the
joy.
time we leave, it's got to be like we're like shoemaker elves.
But talking about the market experience, I mean, it's changed for you. Like, because, I mean, since we've been hanging out and
Yeah.
doing things, right? So now, not only are you at the whim of going to to a furniture showroom at 2 a.m. to shoot when nobody's there,
Right. Yeah.
but you're now trailing designers.
Trailing
All through
designers
market,
and sitting
right?
on panels, and definitely taking much more of a forward-facing approach to telling the creative story, and
Well, you're
asking people
part
to
of the
trust us
system,
with the creative story. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason for asking you here today, and I do want to get into sort of like from your school and into the 90s trip and the efforts that HPXD has done, and what the interior design community has done to foster sort of that community of interior designers that are part of market now, instead of it being a very sales rep heavy
Right.
market.
Well, I mean, that's so. Ken, I'm old enough to tell you that when I used to go to market, it was no designers. Okay, so
Right.
many of us remember that. But High Point Market Authority has done such a great job. I mean, I don't exactly know what when the faucet turned on and designers started to come and who and what exactly prompted it. But through the programming, through the style spotters, which I don't remember what year that started, but they have been, attracting designers more and more. Now designers they are more than half of who comes to High Point Market.
Right. See, that's that shift that I was
Yeah,
hoping to
that
talk
shift.
about.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing. So there is that shift. And it's a very interior designer heavy
And that's good.
market. And I love interior designers. I mean, I rarely have met one that I don't fall in love with when I'm interviewing them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So I would like to talk a little bit about what brought you from where you started, and maybe even prior to being the editor at Design Today, and then sort of what that road looked like that brought you to High Point the first time in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back and keep it brief, but my mother was an artist. I grew up in a house filled with art, color, and she did like to decorate. She took pride in the home. I went to college thinking I would be an advertising executive in fashion. That's just what I thought I'd do. And I was a liberal arts major, and I had the most liberal arts major of anything called American Studies, which was
Okay.
very broad. And I did learn in college that I liked to write. And I got the bug to enter the magazine world. And it took me a long time to get my foot in the door in magazines. I also discovered, I have a background in public relations. Like, I just kind of ended up, when I got to New York after college, I probably went through like one of those like human resources, like a job,
Yeah, like a staffing service.
Staffing service, yeah. I mean,
gotcha.
I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do. I was like a waitress, and then I was like, I should get something else. Anyway, was in events, and then this amazing PR professional, Arthur Novell, plucked me out of the events into PR. And that's just been a great background foundation for everything that I've done after that.
yeah.
Like, just learning how to write, learning how to ask for things, create win-win situations, been fantastic. While I was there, I went back to school at Parsons School of Design. I don't remember exactly what prompted me to go and study interior design, but I think I just really liked space and thinking about how to manipulate space and
Okay.
environments. So I studied interior design, thought I'd love to work in restaurant design. Like, I thought, I'm going to send my resume to the Rockwell Group and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, sent my resume to a few companies, never worked officially in interior design.
Okay.
But I did finally get my foot in the door in the magazine world. And this was when I would type out a resume and cover letter
Yeah.
and send it in the mail
Yeah.
to, I had no contacts,
Right.
And I remember getting a note back like from Hearst saying, we'll keep you on file. And I'm like, oh, whatever.
Right.
And I was selling furniture on Madison Avenue at the time. And then I got a
Okay.
call from Country Living magazine.
Okay.
And that that's what got me into the industry of home furnishings
That makes
through
sense. Okay.
magazines, and worked there for 13, 14 years. And it was amazing. And but at first I was like, country living, like, I don't know anything about that. I wanted to work
Right.
for House Beautiful. It was
Right.
like,
Right.
but I learned that country, and this would apply to a lot of different brands, like country living was a state of mind, and it was a feeling. It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily a product. And so I spent 14 years there, and then a couple of years that just weren't very good, for me in my career, raising kids,
Right.
moving to Florida. And then I got my foot, then I came back into the industry through technology.
Okay.
Didn't really warm up to it. I
No.
don't know. We probably have had, I'm not big, it's not an ability of mine I'm not intuitive when it comes to technology.
Oh, right. Okay.
You
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And then I applied for the job at Designers Today. I really wanted to become an editor again, and I had that for 4 years before
Okay.
coming to HPXD. But my first trip to High Point was in the 90s, mid-90s, for Country Living. I was the market editor.
Okay.
And I would come, that was when magazine groups were huge at the time. We
Right.
would have probably 5 editors and 4 people from our sales team. And we
Okay.
would be this big caravan going through, a lot of companies that don't exist anymore, like Drexel Heritage, Pennsylvania House, Thomasville, Hammer-Don. And we'd go and, be there for an hour and a half touring, talking about them advertising in the magazine.
Okay.
And I just kind of was and I lived in New York at the time, and I grew up in Philadelphia. So coming to High Point, this small, charming, cool city with all these bungalows and old houses, and
At this point, you've built an awareness of sort of what has become your, definition of design in general by working for a magazine like Country Living, while having a very not what you would think of when you come to mind with country living. You're thinking small town. You're thinking, well, you're surrounded with New York and Philadelphia. So you're not. So your definition of design has already shifted at this point. You've got the introduction to interior design and home decorating, and now you're shifting your idea of, well, what does it mean? What is the state of mind for country living? So you're forming sort of what you're doing with HPXD right now is, what is your definition of design?
yeah.
And can you test it? Can you test your idea of, what you think of as design, and then start kind of opening up those silos, in our industry, and say, well, this is all connected across, all of these platforms. The way country living is a state of mind more than a product. That's High Point in general is, very true to, that statement.
Yeah. I what I learned at Country Living, I mean, we would have people sending us photos of their homes, that's
yeah.
people would send in photos, and at the beginning, then they got digital, but and we, sometimes it was obviously not photogenic at all.
Right.
And as an editor, we would go to these places and have to, we'd style it a little bit.
Right.
I was always really interested, though, less in I wanted to document how those people were living, because we didn't really photograph interior designers' homes very much. It was mostly just regular folks with great style who maybe had extraordinary collections,
Right.
or had renovated a really cool old house. And you just know that a house has that it factor, that it will photograph well. Maybe you have to bring in a rug, maybe some linen sheets. But anyway, it was a great learning ground for me to really be on to really understand the brand.
Right.
And I mean, it was a process.
I mean, I like that, because when every time you and I have spoken, where you were, with the magazine in New York, you bring with you kind of this air of authority when it comes to design. And so it's kind of neat that you have all the education in the background of an interior designer, of somebody in the industry, but you've kind of come into it from such a different angle that I think it maybe gives you a better appreciation for design.
Well, this is something I learned. So, okay, I studied design. I love decorative arts history. So as an editor, I understand how to speak about design.
Right.
Like I understand the references. And this is a conversation that I've had with several designers, and we've had panels on it. And, the Bean and Stock Furniture Library, like the most incredible collection of books here and
Oh, yeah.
the history of design and architecture is right here in High Point. But so when I was editor-in-chief of Designers Today, I had different people writing for me at one point. And I would notice that those who were not trained in design, like say there was a beautiful picture with some French antique chairs, and they would not know what to focus on in the picture.
Oh,
like
right.
they would not know necessarily to talk about those chairs that are like rare or
Historically inspired.
Yeah, like
there's
really
a story. Right. Yeah.
I really noticed that my training was really helpful in being in writing, and communication. And I mean, I think you can learn it on the job. You just have to want to learn it and be curious,
So you're bringing a lot of that writing and your passion for like the written word when you're doing the things like the Verge Summits and things like that, where you're now exercising that editorial writing style, talking about design, making it understandable and marketable to every different level in the industry.
So okay, a magazine to me is really, it's about education, right?
Yeah.
Like the sharing of information. And so putting together a magazine, what do people want to read about? What will catch their eye visually? Verge Summit, so Vacation Rental Design Summit, for anybody that has never heard of it before, right? When putting together an event that's never been done before, or the second one or the third one that we're anticipating now, it's almost like a magazine. I mean, it has different parts, different elements, and it's very education-driven,
Very much so.
And experience-driven. So it's, and I mean, I've had to learn about this vacation. What is vacation rental design? It's been great. I mean, I'm excited by it. I think,
which I feel like was also a positive that came out of the pandemic was the short-term rentals and the vacation rentals kind of blew up into its own world. Where you wanted to get away and you needed something that hotels were shut down. Like could you
nobody
find
had
an
to go to the
escape?
office to work, right?
Right.
So I mean, be a nomad and work from Arizona for a month and then change it up.
Absolutely. Wi-Fi was more important than permanence.
Yeah.
And so you kind of usher in an entire industry of very talented interior designers that were probably more working for someone who knew somebody, like, oh, she's very good at setting up a house, ask her to come over. Now you're realizing that these are entire careers that have just been kind of waiting in the wings for something to come along and say, show us what you got, like, who do you know? How can you build that? We've seen such an influx of interior designers that have opened their doors to business within the pandemic and then post-pandemic. I mean, was it STR's the third fastest growing industry in America right now? I mean, something so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it is in terms of design. I think that category of design is growing and it's hot. In terms of the STR industry right now, because of that sort of boom,
right?
In the COVID years, it's become a saturated market. So
Absolutely.
That's why we do, our whole thing about the summit, like our mantra for it last year, ordinary isn't profitable.
Right.
There's a lot of STRs out there, short-term rentals, for those who are new to this. You've got to stand out. So,
yes.
Design is one way to stand out. Photography is another way. You can't just design it, you got to market it.
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
So it's the summit. Yeah, the summit is amazing, and it's been great to work with you on that. Yeah.
Well, and that was actually our real introduction to High Point by Design, and at that point we knew that we wanted we heard you speak at Cogden Yards in 2022, and Johnny came away and he said that may have been the most important meeting that we've had. To listen to them talk about the future of High Point from a ground level view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just talk about that because that's our origin story. It's how we met, right? So
yes.
Congdon Yards, which is America's, the Commons at Congdon Yards, also called High Point's Living Room. They would do these lunch and learns, basically. So they asked HPXD to do one, and we called it the Design Immigrants. And we had a lot of our members who moved here from Europe and other parts of the United States. Like, why did they come to High Point?
Right.
So it was them talking about the value of High Point and how excited they are really about High Point now and the future, the possibilities. You were in the audience. I know. I was the moderator, and I was probably like, who are those guys? And then, and then, I didn't know everybody that was in the stands.
No, of course not. Right.
But afterwards, you and Johnny came up to us, and you were like, we love that, and we'd love to work with you, and let's figure it out. And I think we probably met the following week, and and then I was like, well, I've got like 40 SCAD students coming to town, 2 days after market.
Get a little film.
How about, and you guys showed up and you killed it. Yeah.
And now
great.
it's so nice to get that, it's never an expected email, but I always like getting the emails from you because it's always, I have this idea, there's this thing coming up, and I think the creatives and creative acts will always kind of lean into each other, and when creatives can come together, the stuff that they create kind of sparks the imagination to kind of already start creating the next thing mentally, and seeing it grow and evolve. And from working in all the different functions with HPXD, I've been able to see our own video team grow and evolve, and kind of hone our craft into things that are more polished and more authentic, and telling a story in truer words.
No, that's awesome. I love hearing that, and we're getting ready to embark, on a new project, which is going to be pretty exciting.
It is very exciting. Mm-hmm. I guess that kind of brings up, we've got a couple minutes left, and I would like to kind of see where what 2025 looks like right now for HPXD. What we're, what's on the radar for this year.
Yeah.
Oh, anything you can talk about, or
I mean,
top secret?
No, it's not top secret. We're going to carry on with events. But what I alluded to before, we're going to work together on creating a brand video for High Point by Design, and trying to capture what we are, because we can, put a bullet list of a couple of things we are, but we got to capture the vibe, we got to capture the feeling that is in High Point that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
And how do you capture that in a fresh, new way?
Right.
And, we love having designers to come here shopping. We love educating people about design. So we love the student influx. We love our manufacturing community that works so hard. And so these people with incredible experience, we go into any factory, not any factory, but go into many factories here. And it's just so inspiring to see these people and their talents and their tools and just everything.
Absolutely.
And then our beautiful showrooms. I mean, we're so much here. And then, we're great architecture, and there's a lot. So we're gonna have a giant brainstorm session.
I
probably
am so
more
excited.
than one, where we're just gonna listen and kind of build out what we feel like, sound like, and look like.
I agree. I think I'm so excited to start on that project, because from the earliest conversations you and I had, it was, well, I might like the idea of doing something that sort of shows what High Point is, and a High Point by Design brand video that is essentially High Point facing. It's tapping into the sounds, the smells, the textures, that spirit that we were talking about. The calm that surrounds the city on the dreary days, and the way the sun kind of brings people out from their respective all the industries overlap so much, and being part of High Point, I really like the idea of telling the story of how these different businesses open, and when you throw open the shutters and you start that morning, and what that morning looks like. How many of us start our morning at 4 or 5 a.m. by 8:30, we're already going, like, we're ready for,
Yeah.
lunch.
Well, and just like, we say design never goes dark. That was
Right.
our coined phrase from the beginning, our tagline, I guess. And what that means is exactly what you just said. I
Yeah.
mean, here in High Point, I mean, it's just going on. There's people working all year round
Absolutely.
on like the thing that is, say, market,
Right.
but or just they're getting ready for trade shows, they're doing photography, there's
Yep.
stuff is happening here. But also, like, for me, who's a creative, and I imagine designers do this too, like, design never goes dark, like, and I'm sure you can relate. Like, I'm in the shower, I am like creating in the shower, I am like thinking about if I have a writing assignment, I of course have my best thoughts in the shower.
Oh, yeah.
But if it, or like, I'm redesigning parts of my house, so like, the brain, designing is enjoyable. My brain loves
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
Doesn't want to shut off,
No.
So it's just, it's that. There was something else I wanted to say, and maybe I'll remember it. Anyway, yeah.
No, I like that. I think that, when we were talking earlier about how, the one creative act, and then that gets the ball rolling. And when you share a room and you share ideas within creatives, you're inspiring each other while you're being inspired. And, I know, me personally, that can turn, it's weird the way that can be such an asset to surround yourself with all these creatives, but it can turn so quickly into like self-doubt and that imposter syndrome because you're listening to all these amazing ideas, and instead of feeling like you have something to contribute, you're thinking, if they knew who I was, they wouldn't let me in this room right now. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think we all have that.
I think so.
Moments. Social media doesn't help with that usually, but yeah. But then you just gotta, let those negative thoughts. You have to, like, they came. Take some breaths, let them go. Put on your favorite tune that makes you feel like, I got this, and then just step into that good energy again.
So that kind of actually rounds out perfectly what I was gonna. The last thing I wanted to talk about was, we want to use this podcast as a mouthpiece, for our industry, for the creatives in the industry, to inspire someone that's working at their desk at 3 o'clock in the morning on their next thing, to the student that's debating on whether or not to get into one of these creative industries, they're just starting out and, it's either this or something else. What would you say to those, the people that are burning the candle on both ends right now, and the student that's trying to make that next, big move? What would you say to that person that's, considering that?
Well, to that student, I would say, just come and spend a day with us in High Point.
There you go. Yeah, that's.
I mean, like, and so this week, a designer friend of mine came in here with her client. Her client is not at all related to the home furnishings world, but she experienced with the designer, our people, and that's really, I mean, our greatest asset.
Yeah.
Our people, our places, some historic places that have been reconfigured. Anyway, this woman, her client, was like, as the designer told me, she's like, I want to join the industry. Like, she's not from the industry.
Right.
But she, there's something that's like a little bit of a spell when you get here. And she felt it. She felt it.
Yep.
And, kudos to the designer for, showing her a good time. I mean, I put an itinerary together for them. They followed it. They added some things. But she just had such a good time. So I would just say to anybody on the fence, spend a couple days with us here.
Right. Yeah, reach out. Does HPXD do anything like that, where you would sponsor a designer who's trying to come, to kind of get into the industry, like a student? Like, I know that you've worked with SCAD before in the past, but, just thinking out loud, it might be kind of neat to, sponsor a couple students, a couple people that have never been to High Point that are, sketching stuff in notebooks, hoping that, their dream comes true. Maybe we do something.
We have opportunities we do. We sponsor along with several other companies, and the Future Designer Summit with the Bean and Stock Furniture Library. So that's a yearly event, and HPXD sponsors one or two students, and lots of other companies can sponsor a student. And I think it's a very fair cost to sponsor that. So that's one way to participate.
That's great.
We have a group of 50 ASID students ASID student chapter members coming here on the 23rd.
Okay.
So, and that's something we do every year. So it's like they have their day in High Point.
So that's cool.
And so, in terms of sponsoring, I mean, anybody's welcome here all the time. If you have trouble getting here, we'll figure it out.
There you go. I like that. So someone can reach out to you through High Point by Design or hpxd.org and kind of get the whole story of what HPXD is doing, what they're doing in the news, what they're doing within the industry.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, following us on Instagram, High Point X Design.
Yep.
And DMing us and now I work out of our visitor center. So I have an actual office that is open every, Monday through Friday, and people can come and, show up and it's
So
great.
Next on the calendar, you've got the brand video, then any like kind of cool market events that we're planning?
Well, I'm not sure when this is running, but one of the we love our Vacation Rental Design Summit, which will be this summer.
Okay.
To be officially announced soon. But another cause, and we worked together on this, we did design around neurodiversity, right? And inclusive design. So related to that, but not exactly that, at Market, we'll be doing a day called Designing Wellbeing.
Okay.
And that's all about neuroaesthetics, biophilia, and the healing power of beauty. So it's related to what we've worked on together.
That's cool.
So that is something that I feel very strongly about. We're collaborating with Science and Design on that. And it'll be a day of education followed by touring showrooms the following day. So I'm very excited about that.
That is very exciting. And I know that, High Point is a certified autism destination. We're very proud to, have that certification as a city. That's very important to kind of continue to educate the public, and the community. And we were fortunate to be able to film the last neurodiversity event that you had, the Designing Forward series. And I think we still talk about in our studio the difference in light and things that we had no idea. So when that video kind of makes it into the rounds and into social media, I would encourage everybody to watch that because I mean it is amazing what can inspire you that you would have never sought inspiration from there, and to listen to the stories and the people that are affected and kind of leading the way and creating more neurodivergent friendly design and from safety to aesthetics. It's impressive.
We are fortunate. I mean, we work with companies that serve the luxury market. We are my best friends are interior designers that are doing these incredible projects. But near and dear to my heart, and this is one of the reasons that we're building a foundation now, a nonprofit 501c3, is to take all that we know, all that we get to talk about in our world of luxury interior design, and democratize that. I mean, I want our community to benefit from the principles of design that we get to talk about all the time, that they're not talking about. They're doing their work. They're not in our industry.
Right.
But the principles of biophilia and balance and harmony and things that, don't cost a giant amount of money, but just people should know about it can help them live better. Like that's a mission, a personal mission, but also something as we build our foundation that we want to make sure we are serving our community as well as the next generation of our industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I think that sums up perfectly into the mission of what you're doing in HPXD right now. And that is, design is everywhere. It is literally everywhere.
Yes.
You're talking about colors, painting your wall certain colors can positively influence somebody more than you would ever think that just the color itself represents. And like you said, that's not an expensive, fix. It's not. It's part of the design. The design that is everywhere. It's in all those subtle, small things that we don't have to shout out and focus on. It's making someone's world complete through designing their world.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So I care about that a lot.
That's perfect. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to mention, or kind of?
Let's save it for another time. You told me that I'm going to be, because I'm in the neighborhood, and I'm here, that I might be
You're going to
a
be
contributor here and there.
absolutely.
Come on
We
for some.
want
So, there's always going to be more to talk about.
well, there's going to be, and we can kind of lead out, on this, but definitely with the calendar of people that I want to, get into the podcast. I think that you're going to be, help us kind of be an ambassador and maybe even a host because you're going to know a lot more of the story that we want to hear that will inspire those creatives.
Oh, I would
That's
love
who
to
we're trying to reach.
be a
With doing
co-host with
this.
you sometime or
That would
something.
be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much
Good.
for coming in today, and thank you for this conversation. I really do appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.